Carol that's doing our recording or John Draper, but it looks like we're ready. Thank you, Jen. All right, so let me call this meeting to order. For the record, today is Tuesday, July 21st. It is now 5:01 p.m. and this is a regular meeting of the Board of Finance. I'll jump right into item number 1 on the agenda. I'll entertain a motion to accept the minutes of the special meeting held on June 11th, 2020.
Chris Bay is so moved.
Second.
Okay. So I have a motion and a second. Are there questions or comments?
There was just a lot that we covered in that particular meeting. This is Lance. So I've read through it a couple times, and it looks like everything that I remember. It's just there was a lot that we covered there.
I agree. I think that was the culmination of a whole lot of other complicated and long meetings. So, and of course we always have, because we're doing these meetings by Zoom and they are recorded. So if there's ever a question, we can refer back to any of the recorded documents. So any other questions or comments on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. So item 2, I'll entertain a motion to accept the minutes of the regular meeting held on June 16th.
Boynton, so moved.
Second.
Thank you. So I have a motion and a second. Questions on these minutes?
Mayor, was I one of these meetings I wasn't at? I just can't seem to recall the date. I'm just looking at my calendar.
This is the one, Chris,
Okay.
16.
that you missed.
Yeah, so one abstention, Mayor.
Okay. So let me get the yays. All in favor?
Aye.
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 And any opposed? And that would be one abstention, and that would be Mr. Bayes.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, item 3 is a presentation of the annual audit as prepared by Bloom Shapiro. And I see we have Leslie Zoll and Elena Clausen here from Bloom Shapiro to present. I don't know, did you want to, Leslie, do you have anything that you wanted to present on the screen? Or are you just
do.
Okay.
I do. So I'm going to start to share now, if that's okay.
Good with me.
Okay. You'll have to help me and let me know if you see the PowerPoint at this point.
Not yet.
I'm wondering, John, is she a co-host?
She is not right now, but she should still be able to. I can temporarily make her one, though.
Yeah, I just wasn't sure if she can share as not being a co-host.
There we go.
That's it.
Yep.
All right, you guys can see that now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right, so thank you for allowing us to present to you. I know this is, it's been a while since we issued this report. It's been a crazy couple of months, but hopefully, hopefully we can share with you the results of our audit. And certainly if you have any questions, stop me at any time. So I'm just going to start the presentation by just explaining the scope and what we report on, and then give you some financial statement highlights. I'm going to have Elena talk about the single audits and our management letter recommendations, and then I'm going to come back on and just share our required communications and some upcoming GASBs that are happening down the pike. So in terms of our audit, management's responsible for the city's financial statements and preparing that in accordance with GAAP. There are also management's required to design internal controls to make sure they're free from material misstatements. When we come in, we express opinion on those financial statements based on our audit testing, and we perform certain tests to just provide reasonable assurance that there's no material misstatements in those financial statements. The financial statements that we opine on are based on opinion units. So we opine on the governmental activities opinion unit, which is all of your governmental funds with the exception of your pension funds. The business type activities, which is your WPCA, each major fund, and then the aggregate remaining fund information in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. Our federal single audit is done in accordance with uniform guidance, and our state single audit is done in accordance with Connecticut state single audit. In terms of your audit results, you did receive an unmodified or clean opinion on those financial statements. That's something that you'd want to receive each and every year. We did not know any significant deficiencies or material weaknesses over the internal control structure of the financial statements as a whole. So that's certainly good news for the city. Just to give you some very high level financial highlights, hopefully you can see the screen right there. The governmental activities column, you do have a deficit net assets of 52,000 there. On the business type activities, it's the 10,420 for a total of 42. And our next slide here, I don't know if there's a delay, but it is table 2 on the MD&A. And you can see that's in thousands, so 780,000 deficit for a decrease in net position, sorry. And then on the business type, you had an increase in net position of 4.7. This is a snapshot of your Exhibit 3 within the financial statements. So this shows you all your major funds that we opine on. So you'll see the general fund is the first column there. And your total fund balance is $16,411,000. Unassigned fund balance is 15.9. And that's 12.6% of your budgeted expenditure. So that's a healthy unassigned fund balance. The next two major funds are bonded projects and WPCA infrastructure projects. Fund balance for those are really dependent on the timing of when your projects are expended and when you go to bond. So you have a positive fund balance in bonded projects right now of 7.8, and then infrastructure projects a deficit of 11.4. And again, that's just due to the timing of when you bond and when you start your projects. And then the non-major governmental funds are all of your smaller funds combined, and that total fund balance is 17.6. So then I just wanted to show you a snapshot of Exhibit 4 on the financial statements. It'll show you what your change is from year to year. So you'll see the general fund had a positive change of 1.9 million. Bonded projects, bonded this year is 7.8 increase. Your infrastructure projects went down 8.1, obviously based on some capital projects you're working on currently. And then a small decrease in fund balance for your remaining funds at 23,000. The other highlight I just wanted to mention to you is on your self-insurance fund and your maintenance fund. Those are your internal service funds. Your change in net assets for your self-insurance fund was $689,000. $1,000, and then just a small decrease on the maintenance fund. And then I just wanted to give you a snapshot. This is a snapshot of your pension footnote disclosures. It seems like you had a good year from a police and fireman pension plan perspective with a net increase of 2.8 million. Your municipal employees pension plan had an increase of 1.2, and your OPEB trust fund, which you're still trying to accumulate, had a net increase of 270,000. Just in terms of percentage funded, your police and firemen is 63% funded as of 6/30/19, and your municipal plan is funded at 83%. Both very good percentages funded there. Again, your OPEB fund, you're still starting to gain some momentum on that fund. And I'm gonna let Elena talk about the single audits.
Thanks, Leslie. So in conjunction with the audit, we also performed a federal and state single audit. The total federal awards expended were about $6.2 million, and we tested the child nutrition cluster. We did have a qualified opinion on compliance for procurement, but we had an unmodified or clean opinion on all other compliance requirements. We also had a material weakness identified for procurement, and these procurement issues really arose because the Board of Ed had not updated their procurement policy to be in compliance with the Uniform Guidance's procurement standard, which was effective for fiscal year 2019. According to Ed at the Board of Ed, this has since been rectified. We also did the state single audit where there were $45.4 million of awards expended, and we tested the clean water revenue bonds, grants, and loans. We had an unmodified or clean opinion on compliance, and we had no material weaknesses identified on any on the major programs that we tested, which was the clean water revenue bonds. Next slide, Lizzie. Thank you. We also issued a management advisory letter, which has a few items of best practices and recommendations. The first one being a information technology assessment. Our advisory group performed this information technology assessment as a part of the audit, and they had a couple items of recommendations for improvements in relation to the information technology area. As I mentioned on the previous slide, we recommended updating the procurement policy at the Board of Ed to be in compliance with the federal uniform guidance. And we also recommended a cybersecurity assessment and strategy be implemented, as well as a fraud risk assessment be performed.
So in just some auditors' communication each and every year, we just want to just tell you about some of the things that are noted in the financial statements. If you ever wanted to know what the significant audit accounting policies, are, they're all described in note 1 of the financial statements, so you can always refer back to those. There was no new standards that affected the city last year, and in terms of financial statement disclosure, some of the significant estimates applied to the estimated useful lives on capital assets, as well as net pension liability and net OPEB liability. And those two liabilities are based on actuarial assumptions. But we encountered no difficulties during the audit, no disagreements with management. Alice and her team were very helpful throughout the whole process. There was no uncorrected misstatements, no independent issues, and management did not consult with any other accountants during our time. And then the last thing I just wanted to go over was some of the new GASBs that are coming down the pike with COVID-19 happening in March. The GASB did issue Statement 95 that postponed the effective date of all the new GASBs to alleviate some of the backlog and admin situations there. So we're very happy for that. So this coming 2020, not too much going on in terms of new GASBs. In 2021, Statement 84 comes into play, but you've already implemented that standard. 90 and 92 are not necessarily significant and only have to do with certain transactions. I don't think the city has to worry too much about them. But in 2022, definitely Statement 87 on leases will be it could be time consuming for our municipalities in 2022. So we are asking our municipalities to make sure they have an inventory of all their leases so they can get ahead of the game there. Some of the other GASBs are really not too significant other than 87. They just apply to certain transactions. And then in 2023, the same. So I think going down a few years from now, I think that right now it's GASB 87 on leases. Does anybody have any questions on anything that I've reported to you today?
Silence is golden.
Well, thank you for having us.
No, thank you, Leslie. Did any of the board members have a question specific to the presentation or in the audit, which Leslie did forward to us months ago?
Mayor, I do, Laureen.
Thank you, Laureen. What's up?
Leslie, if we were to get to a point where we had OPEB benefits properly funded, what percentage would you like to see there?
That's a question really for your bond rating agencies. There's no set amount that you would have to have. I mean, I've seen across the state of Connecticut, it varies to every town. There's never been like a set landmark that you need to reach necessarily right now.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions or comments? All right. Well, again, thank you very much, Leslie. As we're now going into a new audit cycle, we appreciate them, very helpful to sort of confirm some of the stuff, the decisions that this board had to make recently with regard to our budget adoption. So greatly appreciate it.
No problem. Thank you so much.
All right. Be well. Thanks.
Thank you.
We'll give a minute and they can return the screen to us. There you are.
Where am I?
All right. So we're moving into item number 4 on the agenda. I will entertain a motion to authorize the transfers described in the City Controller's memo dated June 30th, 2020 to close out the small inactive accounts.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Wright.
Second,
Yes.
Laureen.
Thank you. With a second from Lorraine Pesky. Questions or comments on the memo? I know Alice is on the phone with us. No questions?
There were some ancient ones there.
Yeah, nothing.
Yeah.
My only comment is it's nice to see some of this old stuff kind of get cleaned up.
Yeah, no, we agree. I think that, it's one of those things every year you look at and think we should do that, but it's always, I know that Alice would always remind me that she wanted to try to go back to the original intent of those funds to see if it was something that we wanted to move into a similar like kind account just to be consistent with the intent. So I think she did a great job finally cleaning these up, and I appreciate her work on it. If there are no questions for Alice, I'll call the motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? Motion carries. So item 5 is I would entertain a motion to authorize the fiscal year 2019-2020 transfers and budget amendments described in City Comptroller's memo dated June 30th, 2020.
Mayor, so moved.
Thank you, Mr. Bayes.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Wright. So I have a motion and a second. Are there any questions on these transfers?
Yeah, this is Lance Boynton. On the vehicle replacement, is that going to be talked about in the next segment, or is that something from the past? What exactly is that 400,000?
In the 1920 transfer, that was the amount that was budgeted. Alice, you're on?
I
There
am.
she is. Okay.
That was the amount that was budgeted for in the 1920 budget to fund the vehicle replacement.
Okay. That's what I thought. I just wanted some clarification. Thank you.
Other questions or comments?
I have a question.
Yes.
Alice, on the BEI recording, and why would we need to move that money in the succeeding years, in the 5 years? Why wouldn't we just budget that money in the correct account in the first place in the succeeding years?
Excuse me. Actually, there was an urgency to getting the recording equipment. There was not enough in the capital reserve for the PD. We thought about going out and getting a lease on it, but we did not want to pay the interest on the lease. So at that point in time, we made an arrangement that we would borrow from the capital reserve to fund that recording equipment, and then just add to the budgets over the 4 years a smaller amount rather than trying to put it all in one budget year, knowing when the budgets were going to be.
But it says it's taking it would be moving it from the detectives. And I don't understand why we wouldn't budget it where we need to budget it in the succeeding years.
Well, the detective division is where the recording equipment would have been budgeted for in the first place.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yes. That's the line item they had some of the money in the first place.
Okay, it's the detective, not detectives, not salaries or things.
No.
Okay. All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Other questions or comments? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, so we're moving on to item 6. I'll entertain a motion to authorize the fiscal year 2020-2021 transfer and budget amendments described in the City Comptroller's memo dated July 16th, 2020.
So moved.
Mayor, second.
And was that Mr. Bayes? I didn't look up fast enough.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. So I have a motion and a second. The floor is open for questions.
This is Mr. Boynton. Looking at the fire department for next year, pretty close to $1 million in there. Is that for a new vehicle? What's the 928,000 for?
I'm not sure where we're looking at 928,000.
Am I looking at the right file? I'm looking at the vehicle replacement plan.
Yeah, no,
Did I
we're
jump
one
ahead?
above that.
Yeah, we're not
Yeah.
there.
Sorry about that.
No, that's
I'll hold that question for a minute.
You sent me scrambling to see what did we do. All right, if there are no questions regarding the budget transfers or amendments, then I'll entertain a motion to approve. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, so now we're on Mr. Boynton's question, item number 7. I'll entertain a motion to accept the 2020-2021 vehicle replacement plan as presented. Now, actually, it isn't as presented. So the vehicle replacement plan that was submitted when we did this agenda included a $28,000 line item in, sorry, I have to go back to my grand totals. A $28,000 line item in the 2021 year for the planning and zoning vehicle through Vehicle Replacement Advisory Board. It was recommended that that be put out a year. So we would actually be looking at the total budgeted amount for the 2021 year being $361,000. So I would be asking, the motion I'm actually seeking would be to accept the 2021 vehicle replacement plan as amended to reflect the $28,000 reduction to the planning and zoning vehicle line item.
So
Do I have
moved, Ms. Pesky.
Thank you, Pesky. Thank you. Do I have a second? Thank you, Mr. Bayes. Okay. Now, Mr. Boynton, your question was regarding the $928,000.
For next year. Just looking at the fire department, we've got basically $1 million in 21-22. And then going out, I know it's quite a bit in the future, 26-27, there's a 1.4 million there. Just trying to get some clarification on what particular equipment those two actually represent.
So,
Mayor, I'm sorry to interrupt. Were you? I don't think you got a vote on that last one. Just the motion in the second.
on the acceptance of the budget transfers?
Let's see. I thought you asked for a motion in a second. I didn't hear a.
I'm hoping John is paying attention. John, did I not call the vote on item number 6?
Yeah.
I thought you did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think you did. I just missed who made the motion.
So item number 6, the motion was made by Mr. Wright and seconded by Mr. Bayes.
Right. I just didn't hear the vote afterwards. That's all.
All right.
I didn't hear the yay or nay vote, but that's if you've got it, then no big deal.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have it.
Okay. Thank you, Chris. So those are the challenges when we're doing these by Zoom. I apologize that we're still here, but grateful that we're still here.
Yeah.
So on item number 7, we're discussing the vehicle replacement. So I think to Mr. Boynton's question, when you're looking at what are those expenses, I'm wondering, do you have the entire Excel spreadsheet or are you just looking at the grand totals page?
I just have the grand totals page.
Okay, so I think what I need to do is I need for you to have the entire Excel spreadsheet, because for every single one of these line items, the street department, fire department, police department, there is a breakdown. So in the 2021 year, the tab that says street department explains what those purchases would be. And I'm going to do a quick email to everybody now, just so that everybody does get that in the future or have it.
And Lance, the 928 is in the 21-22 year?
Yes.
Yeah, 21-22.
Yeah, that's for a ladder truck.
Thank you. Emil is on the line. So, and he knows this plan probably.
I think having that breakdown would be helpful. Just understanding, is that a single vehicle? Is that?
That's it's a single vehicle. That's
Emil, is that the big ladder or the small ladder?
Big one, 110 foot. We're looking at demos right now. So we're trying to do our best. We're trying to go to different aspects. I'm trying to get it cheaper. So we are going through a bunch of demos right now as we speak.
Is that not our newest truck?
No, that truck's about 20 years old.
The big ladder, because I thought we had bought a demo.
We have two of them. You have a 75 foot and you have a 109. The one we're replacing is a 75 footer.
Oh, so the one you're placing is the 75 footer, not the 110.
No, we just purchased that one not too long ago.
Okay, yeah, no, I thought I heard you say it. Okay.
Yeah. We're looking at a 110.
Okay, so we'll have two 110s instead of a 75 and a 110.
Correct.
I'm sure Chief Talley, I know he's on vacation. I'm sure he has, or if he's back, I'm sure he has some sort of justification to go to two big ladders, Mayor, instead of.
No, he does. He's done a lot of background work on these units. It's just that what we've been demoing lately just seems to be the big ones.
Okay.
And keep in mind when you're looking at this plan that this is essentially the inventory. And so each of these vehicles, as you heard Emil say, that vehicle that is put in the plan for replacement next year is already in our inventory. So we're not looking to add vehicles to this plan. We're looking to maintain our inventory and replace that inventory planfully, given the life cycle of the vehicle and the funding of the plan. I think the only exception to that statement is this year, where in the 2021, you'll see under the police department where there's $284,000, that actually is to replace a CSI van that had been, it's been in our inventory, but it was always in the plan for $55,000 because it was always the hope that there would be a grant out there that would offset the cost of this purchase. And what the police department found, and this is actually the next agenda item, was that those grant funds are just not out there, that the van desperately needed to be replaced. So this year, this plan for the 2020-2021 year is modified to accommodate that acquisition. I'm hoping for those of you that are looking at your screen, you see it?
So I just pulled up the file that you sent, Mayor, and it looks like the for next year that 928,000 is actually for a pumper truck and an SUV.
Correct.
Not a new ladder.
Well,
no.
See, what we're trying to do is look at a quint. It is a pumper. It's a quint, which is like a 4-in-1 type unit. And that's what we're looking at. Something that has a ladder on it and is also a tanker combined.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you for the clarification. Appreciate it, Emil.
Okay.
Yeah. And this is such this Excel spreadsheet, you know, and all of the tabs is really, you know, those are the guiding documents that we look at and Emil is building off of every year. I'm sorry that it didn't get out to you before the meeting in its entirety, but these are the back pages that populate this grand total page. I think that if you also look at the end of the document, you'll see where I'm trying to see what tab number it is. Your tab for the funding, which is the last tab on this document, shows the estimated balance being carried forward, the that transfer that we just talked about with the $400,000 in budget transfers, that it shows you how this fund is performing year over year based on those purchases. So,
The back data definitely helps, because one of the things I was looking for is just not replacing several vehicles in the same year, but spreading it out. So in essence, that really does answer my question.
yeah. And I think that it's also important for us to look at this, because as we know, or as you'll see in our next meeting, when we talk about how much we're funding year over year in this account, you know, this year we will be talking about a $400,000 allocation for this fund. But you'll see that in the next year and the following year, we're going to need to infuse considerably more in funding if we're going to stay on, you know, on point with the plan. So, are there any other questions on the motion?
No, I think we covered a lot of this in the VRAB meeting, Mayor. You know, Emil has done a really good job over the past year to, you know, try to get the maximum life out of these cars. And we, you know, we talked about that for a little while during that vehicle replacement advisory meeting. So, you know, just to the other board members, you know, Emil has, you know, because of the careful, you know, each vehicle that he's looked at, he's really been able to help us spread that out, so we're only replacing vehicles when they need to be and not adding additional vehicles. So that's to Emil's credit there.
Thank you. All right, if there are no other questions or comments, I'll call the motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, so item number 8 on the agenda, and I just touched upon it a little bit. I will entertain a motion to approve Chief Baldwin's request to purchase a new crime van for the Torrington Police Department from MHQ for a total amount of $283,029.50, and to authorize the mayor to act on behalf of the city regarding the execution of the contract and its administration.
Mayor, so moved.
Second, Laureen.
Thank you. All right, so I have a motion and a second. And I think I saw that Chief Baldwin is on the line, and Emil is here if we have questions. No questions? We're good?
I do have a comment.
Yes.
I really do appreciate the detail that Emil and Chief Baldwin put into this. It really clearly articulates the need and defines how they're going to try to make up the gap financially. So reading through this, to be honest, I was really impressed. So I do appreciate the time and effort you put into this. It really, again, from my point on the board, it really helps understand what the need is, and then, you know, what are ways that we can offset the cost by looking at some innovative, you know, creative ways to do so.
And to think of how many years we went with the other one, that was pretty amazing.
Yeah, so I see Chief Baldwin is unmuted. I don't know if you wanted to add anything, Chief.
No, I appreciate the comments, Mr. Boynton and Ms. Pesky, very much. We are in desperate need of this vehicle, and you know, we've made we've done different things to try and offset the costs, and we are applying $115,000 to offset that final figure as a cost savings to the city. So we are fortunate in that regard, where we have those funds set aside that are specific to law enforcement, which is called asset forfeiture funds. Those funds cannot go into any kind of a general fund. They're specific, again, for law enforcement agencies. And that money is a result of the excellent and significant work that the officers and the detectives have done for our department over the years, where we've done seizures that related to narcotics and drug related activities. And just to be sure that we were able to utilize these funds to help offset that final cost, we made sure that our T's were crossed and I's were dotted, so that we can give a considerable cost savings to the city on this.
Thank you, Chief. All right, if there are no questions or comments, then I'll call this motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. So item 9, I'll entertain a motion to consider business by department heads.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Ray and Mr. Bayes. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So we still have Emil on the phone. Oh, maybe, yeah, Emil is still here. I don't know if there were any questions for him. Or Emil, if you wanted to add anything.
I have nothing to add today. Thank you.
Okay, good. And Chief Baldwin, anything that you wanted to add this evening?
No, once again, thank you to the members of the Board of Finance for your continued support of the department. Also to Emil, we couldn't do this without him and his expertise in this matter. So I want to thank him very much as well. And for the Vehicle Replacement Committee, that includes your member, Chris Bayes. I want to thank you also. So thanks again for your continued support.
Thanks, Chief.
All right, and Dan Farley, is there anything from the Treasurer's Office?
No, nothing new, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Alice, anything this evening?
Nothing, thank you, Mayor.
Okay. Let's see if I'm missing anybody. No, I think I got you all. Okay, then let's move into item 10. I'll entertain a motion to consider business by the mayor and members of the Board of Finance.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so I'll start with Miss Pesky. Anything this evening?
First of all, I want to thank Alice and her team and everyone who gets involved with the audit. It must feel like Groundhog Day for us to be talking about last year's when they're in there starting out New Year's, the New Year audit, and it's just a constant. Also glad to hear that that the GASB regs have been put off for a year or two. That'll be helpful to everyone. But thank you to Alice for it was excellent information and an excellent confirmation of where we're at in the city. Now, what's going to be coming up in the next several years is doesn't have to do necessarily with the audit, but just as a financial, we're going to be stressed financially to figure out how to keep everything afloat. But knowing that everything is, all our ducks are in a row and all the information that we have is solid information to work with, that should help us to make these very tough decisions that are going to have to be made. The other thing, Mayor, it's pretty clear that if you look at what's going to happen with people continuing to work from home, the school being some combination of in school and at home, and trying to keep our businesses that are here and continue to attract businesses, that the internet has to be a priority to make sure that the internet is strong and available for everyone. And it's not something that Torrington can fix by itself. And I know that the Northwest Corner, the councils of governments are working on this, but it just feels like we're asking everybody to do all these things, but we're not giving them the tools that they need in order to be successful at all of this. And I wonder what we as a city and a community can do to work with the state and work with the federal government to be leaders on this, to bring stronger internet to the Northwest Corner.
No, I hear you, and it's Northwest Connect that has been trying to expand broadband into the Northwest Corner. With Torrington, I mean, we are fortunate. We do have pretty significant access to the broadband, whether it's through Optimum or Altice, or trying to think of the other company that we're it's not Verizon. We can't the other broadband provider, but
Frontier, Mayor.
Frontier. Thank you. So, the biggest challenge that I have every time this comes up at the COG level or when it's discussed as a regional problem is the expense of this. You know, it is a very expensive prospect. And it has to be everybody in for it to be cost effective for those small municipalities. And everybody in where the population density is means that Torrington would bear the greatest burden of that expense if it's done per capita. So those are the biggest challenges that I see happening in this discussion. You know, I agree with you any way that the city can participate in advocating for the state to step up and, you know, and step in to provide that support that's needed, those resources that are needed. But always, when I think that this is something, the infrastructure that has to be brought into place, the cost of that infrastructure, you know, assigned to the municipalities based on per capita, it's Torrington that would bear the brunt of that, Torrington and Winsted. So a challenge, to be honest with you. I don't know what the solution is. And knowing that our budgets are stressed, knowing that we are a distressed municipality, I do worry. I do worry about how this will end up impacting us. There is a study, by the way, that I believe the COG and Economic Development Commission, Northwest Economic Development Commission, was going after funding to do a study to look at, you know, not only where the gaps are in broadband, but other methodologies to cover the cost of bringing that to the region. So I'm obviously going to be participating in every way that we can, just so that we can get a clearer picture of what that would be.
And I'm somewhat distressed to have heard the governor say that they're not going to put any more money into Mira, and the trash to energy piece of it. Not that I don't support recycling and for using composting as a way to help lessen what we need to send to trash to energy, but I don't know what we're going to do with it, what we're going to do with all our trash, and to think of sending it out of state to other places just doesn't. I mean, we were a leader in the trash to energy in the state of Connecticut, and that's not being taken into consideration. It appears to me, anyways.
Yeah, no, it's a point well made, and we know that that is another looming expense for the city. What are we going to do with that? I know I did receive an email from Kristen Brown from the Smart Trash Program. She is indefatigable. I mean, she keeps reaching out. But I do think that what we're going to find, and I did say this as we were doing budget deliberations, we're going to find that we have to look at things differently. This may be one of those things that gets shifted over to a user fee out of our operating budget so that we will be able to sustain an operating budget that, you know, fills in some of the holes that were created by hitting up our fund balance and using the internal service fund to fill in gaps for us. So I do think that's a conversation that you will be hearing a lot of over the coming months, painful as that is.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Lorraine. Mr. Boynton.
Sorry for the background noise. It looks like that road work that you were mentioning is currently passing the house. So encouraging to see, but noisy. So from a business standpoint, you know, with COVID really running rampant everywhere but here, not that trying to diminish the impact here in Connecticut, but looking at the numbers in the South, in the Midwest, and anticipating what's going to happen, understanding what UConn and the CCSU, what they're going to be doing. yeah, I really feel for the Board of Ed. They've got to be just constantly trying to figure out next steps. So from a status or an update standpoint, from a financial side, is there some kind of a status that we can get on for the city side, police, fire, and the Board of Ed? I know we've got that newly created budget, or I don't know if budget's the right word, but
line item. Yeah, that line, COVID-related expenses line
yeah.
item. Yes.
I just, I mean, every night I listen to the news and they change their mind on what the impact to the school system is going to be. And again, going back to the budget time period, one of the big concerns I believe we all had was, what happens if split shift gets mandated? What happens if transportation, you know, doubles in expense? What happens if, you know, all of a sudden we've got to start paying teachers a lot of overtime? So just understanding a little bit of a status from the Board of Finance standpoint to try to understand where we're going to have to build some flexibility into next year and the year after. One of the other challenges that I see is from the manufacturing sector. Right now, commercial airlines are really hit hard, and that's impacting local businesses. Military operations are going strong, but in 2 or 3 or 4 years, we're going to have to start as a state paying back some of this. So I have a funny feeling that military aerospace, military manufacturing is going to be impacted. So again, just anything that we can think of to try to build flexibility into this model, you know, to understand, you know, really where the changes are coming from.
No, I agree. As for the report back to the Board of Finance on those COVID-related expenses, I did reach out to the Board of Education. Ed Aram has been meeting with Alice on matters closing out the year end, and identified that that was something that he had yet to do, moving those expenses into that COVID line item, but something that was on his to-do list. Okay. As soon as we get that report from them, I'll put it on the next Board of Finance agenda and invite the Board of Education to the meeting so that the board can hear from the Board of Ed what's, you know, where they are, what expenses occurred in the 1920 year, what are they anticipating in the 2020 year. Now, I did get an email this afternoon, right before we started this meeting, from Superintendent Lebomsky. She is presenting to the Board of Education tomorrow evening the plan for reopening. And so I forwarded that email to the Board of Finance members, just so you'll have the login information or the access to that, and you can get an idea of what their plans are. The, you know, I mean, obviously, you know, we're playing this by ear. I listened to the news this morning, and in the UK, it appears that they're close to finding a vaccine, or they think they're close, you know, but how soon that is yet to be seen. I don't know. We're hoping for the best. And the good news is everything that we did in our budget still protected and preserved that fund balance. So when you heard Leslie Zoll earlier this evening talk about our healthy fund balance, we recognize that that is, you know, that's what puts us apart from many municipalities, so that if there's an unanticipated expense that's extraordinary, and if there is no avenue or federal fund that's going to provide those resources, that I think we are okay. I don't see them going the route of the split shift AB days. I don't see them doing, you you know, 2 days on, 2 days off. It looks to me like they're going with, you know, full back to school for those people that are not prepared or feel their children may not be, may be health compromised and it might not be best for them to be back. There is a distance learning component. This does speak to what Lorraine Pesky was just talking about. How do we make sure that those families have access to internet, have access to the tools that they need, so that they can continue their distance learning. Those are the things I think that we're going to be really working on or focusing on. So, all right, Mr. Wright.
Well, I just want to say that I'm somewhat encouraged by the sale on Summer Street and what that might mean for the town in terms of possible employment and so forth. And I also see your possible lease negotiated for the old town landfill. And yes. Can you explain a little bit how that, they talked in the paper about $40,000 per year for us, how you negotiated that lease, or how a number came up, or is there any benefit to the town in terms of reduced energy costs?
Yes, yeah. So great questions. The how that lease came about, I mean, obviously for the last 7 or 8 years, our public works director was Jerry Roulette, before it was Ray Drew. Every time these state programs came out, the LREC program, ZREC program came out, all of these energy companies would flock to us. We would, you know, we would do an RFP. We would reach out and entertain proposals from the various solar energy companies. And this year, there was an opportunity through the DEEP, I'm trying to think of the name of the program. It's not the LREC or the ZREC program that traditionally comes from DECD, but it was a DEEP program that is especially targeting solar arrays on landfills. So Ray Drew started right before the pandemic hit, reaching out and entertaining proposals from various solar companies, and US Solar out of Minneapolis, Minnesota, was the one program that brought to us a straight land lease. Every other solar proposal that we listened to was a combination of land lease with that power purchase agreement or the virtual net metering. Virtual net metering is one of those tricky things that, you know, you sign on in year 1 of a 20-year term and you don't know what that's going to look like 20 years from now. So the amount that we came up with is basically an industry standard. It's when we started back in 2013 or 14 with the first proposal, it's a per acre lease fee, and from municipality to municipality, and actually from state to state, they run about the same price.
And how long is this for? Is a set term lease?
So this lease would be, right now it's an option to lease, so that the solar company can do their due diligence. They'll go up there, they'll assess the property, they'll measure the sunlight, where on the property would this best be located. So the option period is a 1-year period with an option to renew that option period for 2 years. So that would be up to 3 years for the option period. The lease period would be a 20-year lease, and the lease is based on a per acre. So once they go through their due diligence and they determine how much of the acreage they need to commit to long-term, that's when they exercise the lease and determine what those acreage are, what the acreage is. They have committed to at least $15,000 per year, or $2,500 per acre, whichever is greater. There's also 4 options for 5-year renewals. So if they get to the end of the 20-year lease cycle and they decide that this is very productive for them, then they can renew for additional 5-year increments up to 4 times. So all in all, between lease option, construction, this could be a 46-year commitment on a piece of property that is otherwise undevelopable, that is, it costs the municipality to maintain. We have to mow it, we have to maintain it. We have to pay a permit because of the monitoring, that's the ongoing monitoring as a landfill. So really what we were hoping for at the very least was for this piece of property to become cost neutral for the city. And I think this does accomplish that.
Good. Thank you.
And your other question that you said is there potential for there to be some, benefit on purchase of electricity? Yes, because obviously they market the electricity that is produced. That is not a part of this lease agreement, but it is always an option going forward.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Nothing else from Mr. Wright? So Mr. Bayes, you're on.
Yes, I kind of have spotty service. I'm still driving. So if I cut out, it's just because I lost service. So reviewing first, thank you, and obviously everybody for everything they've done through the pandemic. Obviously, we're still in the midst of it, but it's been a crazy budget year. So thanks to everybody for their hard work. Number 2, the documents that we received from the Board of Education, they're not exactly what we requested. And I guess, Mayor, I can maybe send something to you in writing with exactly what we were looking for. It's just I think it was just a bunch of grant fund receipts, if I'm correct, which don't exactly answer the question I had. So I could send that to you in writing. Second, about 38 pages, 35, page number 35, was a document with the costs of reopening, which looked to be $2.77 million figure. I don't know if we can speak more to that, or where that cost is going to come from, including 53 bus monitors for 2 hours each day or 4 hours each day, and all those masks for every student and things like that. I think it totaled like $2.7 million in additional dollars to open schools.
So forgive me, I did print out what was sent to the board, but you don't want to see what my desk looks like right now. I'd have to look at that. I believe that document, forgive me, identified what of those expenses were being paid out of Alliance District money, what of those expenses was being paid out of the ESSER funding, and
I guess why I posed the question, Mayor, is because if we're taking money out of Alliance for this in other ways, what are we losing out on the other side that Alliance grant funded? Whether it's they're stopping an art program because of COVID, or whether I think there's a lot of questions there that even maybe some of the other board members, once they see it, will have on really where that $2.77 million is going to come from and what it affects.
Yeah, and I believe, to your first question, that the documents that you received didn't quite answer the question that was posed. Specifically, what of the salaries was being paid out of the general fund? What of the salaries are being paid out of grant funds? I think that that's part of the answer that you're seeking, is, once they moved the extra $1 million out of the operating fund that was presented, because they didn't know whether or not they were going to get the extra $1 million on their Alliance District money. I'm wondering if that's part of the funding stream that they're going to be able to use. But what I'll do is, if you would kindly send me your request, what it is you're seeking by way of that list of documents that the Board of Finance asked for last month, I can then ask the Board of Education superintendent and business director to attend the meeting and explain to the board how those expenses are going to be covered.
Okay, yeah, that'd be great. And like I said, even on the side of you know, this reopening plan, I know that they're going to be talking policy on the reopening tomorrow night to the Board of Education, but I think it might almost be necessary to have, you know, the Board of Education or the administration present for some questions on that, you know, reopening plan on the fiscal side and on the monetary side, and what that means for us, and like I said, what programs are going to be cut because of this, and you know, just things in that respect, if that makes sense.
Yes, well, I think those are always the questions that you ask during the budget deliberation before you make that bottom line appropriation. Certainly, if that's a question you want to get an answer to, we'll invite them for next month.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have.
Okay. All right, I think I hit everybody for comments or questions. If there isn't anything else that the board has, then I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved, Mrs. Pesky.
Thank you, Ms. Pesky. Do I have a second?
Second, Mr. Wright.
Thank you, Mr. Wright. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, we're adjourned. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Night.